The man's voice was a whip crack in the cavernous silence of the bank lobby. Denied. Amara Jones felt the word land like a physical blow, stealing the air from her lungs. It echoed off the polished marble floors, the soaring ceilings, the cold glass walls. It seemed to seep into the very fabric of her worn-out janitor's uniform, a stain she could never wash out. She stood before the imposing mahogany desk of Mr. Thompson, a man who seemed carved from the same expensive, unyielding material. "On what grounds?" she asked, her voice a fragile whisper. Mr. Thompson leaned back in his leather throne, a smirk playing on his thin lips. He picked up her painstakingly completed application, holding it between two fingers as if it were contaminated. "On the grounds that this is a financial institution, not a charity," he said, his voice loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. "We lend to people with assets, with collateral, not to people like you." He didn't have to say what he meant. Her skin color, her uniform, her exhaustion. It was all there in his condescending gaze. Humiliation, hot and sharp, pricked at the back of her eyes. She was just a janitor, a black woman asking for a small loan to stop an eviction, a loan she knew, with every fiber of her being, she could pay back. "Please," she begged, the word tasting like ash. "It is just $2,000. I can pay it back. I work 2 jobs." He laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Your 2 jobs barely keep you alive. Look at you. You are a bad investment." He tore her application in half, then in half again, and dropped the pieces into his wastebasket. The sound of the ripping paper was the sound of her last hope being shredded. Tears threatened to spill, but she refused to give him the satisfaction. She stood frozen, a statue of despair in the middle of a temple built to a god she could not pray to, the god of money. But what she did not know, what Mr. Thompson in his towering arrogance could never imagine, was that this moment of utter degradation was not an ending. It was a fuse being lit. A long, slow-burning fuse connected to an explosion of justice so spectacular, it would not only change her life forever, but would bring this entire temple of pride crashing down around the man who had just tried to break her. What he could not see, when he looked at the janitor, was the $47 million secret she carried without even knowing it. Let me take you back to the morning before it all fell apart, before it was all put back together in a way she never dreamed possible. The day had begun, as all her days did, in darkness. The 4 a.m. alarm was a cruel shriek that sliced through a shallow, restless sleep. Amara's tiny apartment was cold, the old radiator in the corner hissing a weak protest against the autumn chill. For a moment, she lay still, the weight of the world pressing down on her thin mattress. She was tired. She was hungry. She was alone. Not truly alone, of course. In the next room, her 12-year-old sister, Chloe, was asleep, a small, trusting lump under a threadbare blanket. Chloe was the reason. The reason for the 4 a.m. alarms, the aching back, the constant gnawing worry that lived in the pit of her stomach. Since their mother had passed 2 years ago, Amara had become everything to Chloe. Sister, mother, father, provider. It was a role she cherished and a burden that was slowly crushing her. She swung her legs out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold linoleum. No time for self-pity. Time was a luxury, like new shoes or fresh fruit. She moved quietly through the small space, her routine a practiced, silent ballet. She put a pot of water on the stove for oatmeal, the cheapest food she could buy that would stick to their ribs. While it heated, she pulled on her work uniform. The blue fabric was faded from 1,000 washes. The name Amara stitched over the pocket, a little frayed at the edges. Just like her. On the kitchen table, beneath a magnet shaped like a smiling sunflower, was the letter. The eviction notice. Its stark, official language was a constant scream in the quiet of her mind. Failure to remit payment. Vacate the premises within 14 days. 14 days. The number had shrunk with each rising sun. Now it was just 3. 3 days until they were homeless. The thought sent a familiar surge of panic through her chest. She pushed it down, locking it away in a mental box already overflowing with fears. Chloe could not see her panic. Chloe needed to believe everything was okay. "Morning, Mara," a sleepy voice mumbled from the doorway. Chloe stood there, rubbing her eyes, her hair a wild halo around her head. Amara forced a bright smile. "Morning, sleepyhead. Oatmeal is almost ready. Can I put cinnamon in it?" "Of course you can." They ate in comfortable silence, the scraping of their spoons the only sound. Amara watched her sister, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her nose wrinkled when she concentrated on not spilling. This was what she was fighting for. This small, perfect person who deserved so much more than a life of constant struggle. Who deserved a world that did not judge you by the uniform you wore. After Chloe left for school, Amara began her own day's work. Her first job was here, in the very apartment building where she lived. She was the building's janitor, a position that paid her just enough to get a small discount on her rent. The rent she still could not afford. She cleaned the hallways, mopped the lobby, took out the trash for people who lived in apartments identical to hers, but whose lives were worlds away. She saw their discarded pizza boxes, their empty wine bottles, the Amazon packages that arrived daily. She saw the evidence of lives lived without the constant, grinding calculus of poverty. She tried not to feel the envy. Her mother had always taught her that envy was a poison you drank yourself. "You be the light, Amara," her mother used to say. "No matter how dark it gets, you shine." So she shined. She hummed as she worked. She smiled at the residents, even the ones who looked right through her. She left a small, polished stone on the windowsill of old Mr. Henderson's apartment, knowing he enjoyed collecting them on his rare walks. It was a small thing, a tiny act of kindness in a world that felt increasingly unkind. Her second job was across town, cleaning a sleek modern office building downtown. The Citadel Tower. It was a place of glass and steel, a vertical city of ambition and wealth. She worked the evening shift, long after the important people in their sharp suits had gone home. She moved through the empty offices like a ghost, emptying wastebaskets filled with discarded stock reports and expensive coffee cups. She saw the family photos on desks, the degrees from prestigious universities hanging on walls. She learned the rhythms of this world without ever being a part of it. She knew who was a neat freak and who was a slob. She knew who worked late and who left early. Her favorite office to clean was the penthouse suite. It was almost always empty, belonging to some reclusive, mysterious owner who was rarely seen. The office was different from the others. It was minimalist, almost bare, with a massive telescope pointed out the floor-to-ceiling window at the sprawling city and the stars beyond. There were no family photos, no personal effects, save for stacks and stacks of books on astronomy, physics, and philosophy. And there was a chessboard. It was always set up mid-game on a small table near the window. One night, on a whim, Amara, who had learned the game from her father, saw a clever move for the black pieces. Hesitantly, she advanced a pawn. It was a silly, impulsive act. A tiny message in a bottle sent out into an ocean of anonymity. The next night, She returned to find that the white pieces had made a countermove. A thrill went through her. A silent conversation had begun. For months they played. A game of chess, move by move, night by night, between a janitor and a ghost. She started leaving notes with her moves. A bold strategy. You almost had me. He would leave notes back, his handwriting a messy, brilliant scrawl. Almost is not good enough. Your queen is in danger. This silent, anonymous friendship was a small spark of light in her exhausting life. It made her feel seen, in a strange way. It made her feel like more than just the person who cleaned the toilets. But even this small joy was overshadowed by the looming eviction. The $2,000 she needed was an impossible sum. It might as well have been $2 million. She had tried everything. She had asked for an advance on her pay, but was refused. She had sold the few pieces of her mother's jewelry she had left. It was not enough. There was only one option left: a bank loan. The thought terrified her. Banks were like the Citadel Tower, places of glass and steel and power, built for other people, not for her. Her co-worker at the apartment building, a weary woman named Maria, had warned her against it. They were sharing a quick break in the boiler room, the only place they could sit down for 5 minutes. "Do not even bother, sweetie," Maria had said, shaking her head. "I tried last year. They look at our pay stubs, they look at our address, they look at us, and they just say no. People like Mr. Thompson at the big bank downtown, they do not give loans to people like us." "I have to try, Maria," Amara had insisted, her voice tight. "I have no other choice. Chloe and I, we have nowhere else to go." Maria's face softened with pity. "I know. Just be prepared. Protect your heart." So Amara had made the appointment. She had gathered her pay stubs, her worn-out bank book, her mother's death certificate, and a carefully written letter explaining her situation. She put it all in a neat folder. She chose her best clothes, a simple, clean dress she saved for church. She did her hair carefully. She practiced what she would say in the mirror, trying to sound confident and capable, not desperate and terrified. She was going to the main branch of Sterling National Bank, the biggest, most impressive bank in the city. The same bank, ironically, that held the corporate accounts for the Citadel Tower. She felt a strange sense of foreboding as she walked through the revolving doors. The cold, conditioned air, a stark contrast to the humid worry clinging to her skin. The lobby was a cathedral of commerce. The ceilings were impossibly high, the floors a gleaming checkerboard of black and white marble. Tellers sat behind a long, formidable counter of dark wood, their faces impassive. Men and women in expensive suits moved with an air of purpose and belonging. Amara felt small, out of place. Her simple dress and worn shoes a glaring announcement of her station. She clutched her folder to her chest like a shield and approached the receptionist's desk. "I have an appointment with Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice barely a squeak. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly manicured nails and a bored expression, looked her up and down. The judgment was instantaneous and palpable. "Name?" "Amara Jones." The receptionist typed for a moment, then gestured vaguely toward a seating area with leather chairs that probably cost more than Amara's monthly salary. "He will be with you shortly." Shortly turned into 45 minutes. Amara sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, watching people come and go. She saw Mr. Thompson through his glass-walled office. He was on the phone, laughing, leaning back in his chair. He was in no hurry. He made her wait. It was a power play, and she knew it. A way of reminding her of her place before she had even said a word. Finally, his door opened. He did not come out to get her. He simply poked his head out and barked, "Jones, in here." Her heart hammered against her ribs as she walked the long walk across the marble floor into his office. The room smelled of leather and money and something else. Arrogance. "Sit," he commanded, not looking at her, already shuffling papers on his desk. She sat on the edge of the chair, her back ramrod straight. She slid her folder across the vast expanse of his mahogany desk. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for seeing me," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Amara Jones. I am here to apply for a small personal loan." He opened the folder without a word. His eyes scanned the documents with practiced speed, his expression a mixture of boredom and disdain. He saw her pay stubs from the 2 janitorial jobs. He saw her meager savings account balance. He saw her address in the low-income part of town. He did not see her work ethic. He did not see her integrity. He did not see her love for her sister. He saw only a liability, a risk, a nobody. He closed the folder and pushed it back across the desk. "Not possible," he said flatly. "But you have not even heard my situation," she pleaded. "I have never missed a rent payment in my life. My mother passed away, and there were medical bills. I just need a little help to get back on my feet. I will pay it back, with interest. I promise." "Promises from people like you are not worth the paper they are written on," he sneered. "And frankly, your situation is not my concern. My concern is the bank's money." Amara felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp, cutting through her fear. "People like me? What does that mean?" He stood up then, a tall, imposing figure in a perfectly tailored suit. He looked down his nose at her. He saw her uniform peeking out from under her coat, the one she'd had to put on to go straight to her evening shift after this. His lip curled. "It means, Ms. Jones, that you are not the kind of client we cultivate. You are a janitor. Your income is negligible. You have no assets, no credit history to speak of. You are, in the bluntest terms, a bad risk." He wanted to humiliate her. He wanted to make her feel worthless, and he was succeeding. But she would not back down, not yet. "My job does not define my character," she said, her voice gaining a bit of strength. "I am a hard worker, I am honest, I just need a chance." Mr. Thompson seemed to find this amusing. He picked up the phone on his desk. "Security, I have a disturbance in my office." Panic seized her. "A disturbance? I am not making a disturbance. I am a customer." "No," he said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing tone. "You are a waste of my time. Now get out, before I have you thrown out." And that is when he decided to make it a public spectacle. He walked out of his office and into the lobby, forcing her to follow. He stood in the center of the vast, silent room, and he raised his voice. "Let this be a lesson to everyone," he announced to the shocked onlookers. "Sterling National Bank does not hand out money to beggars off the street." He gestured to Amara, his hand a dismissive wave. "This woman comes in here, in her cleaner's uniform, demanding money she has no hope of ever repaying, wasting our time, wasting my time." People stopped what they were doing. Tellers looked up from their computers. Customers paused mid-transaction. Phones began to emerge from pockets, their small, dark eyes opening to record her shame. It was then that he delivered the final, crushing blow. He reached over his desk, grabbed her folder, and walked back out into the lobby where she stood, frozen with shock. "You want to know what I think of your application?" he shouted, and he tore it. He ripped the pages in half, Then again, the sound echoing in the mortified silence. He let the pieces of her carefully assembled hope flutter to the marble floor at her feet. Denied, he said again. The word now a public verdict, a sentence of condemnation. Now get out of my bank. Tears finally escaped, hot and silent, tracing paths of shame down her cheeks. She looked at the faces in the crowd. She saw pity in some, contempt in others, and in most, a profound and terrible indifference. No one spoke up. No one moved to help. They just watched, filmed. She turned to leave, her body moving on autopilot. All she wanted was to disappear, to run and hide from the hundreds of eyes that had just witnessed her utter and complete humiliation. She felt stripped bare, her poverty and her race laid out for public scorn. She had reached the heavy glass doors, her hand outstretched to push them open, when a new sound cut through the lobby's tense silence. It was the purr of a high-end engine, followed by the quiet but authoritative beep of a car being unlocked. A sleek, black sedan, the kind that costs more than a house, had pulled up to the curb directly in front of the bank, ignoring the no parking signs. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was the polar opposite of Amara. She wore a slate-gray suit of impeccable cut. Her silver hair was styled in a sharp, elegant bob, and she carried a slim leather briefcase. She radiated an aura of calm, unshakable authority. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking a steady, determined rhythm on the pavement. She entered the bank, the glass doors swishing open before her, and her cool, intelligent eyes swept across the scene. She took in the torn papers on the floor, Amara's tear-streaked face, Mr. Thompson's smug, triumphant expression, and the crowd of silent, phone-wielding onlookers. She walked directly to Amara. "Are you Amara Jones?" she asked, her voice calm and clear. Amara, startled, could only nod, wiping at her tears with the back of her hand. "My name is Evelyn Reed," the woman said, offering a small, reassuring smile. "I am legal counsel for Silas Croft. He has sent me to find you. We were worried when you did not arrive for your shift." The name Silas Croft meant nothing to Amara, but it clearly meant something to Mr. Thompson. His smug expression faltered, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. Silas Croft was the owner of the Citadel Tower. He was also, more importantly, the bank's largest and most reclusive private client. A man with a portfolio so vast it had its own dedicated management team. A man Thompson had only ever heard of in hushed, reverent tones. "What is the meaning of this?" Thompson blustered, striding toward them. "This is a private matter." Ms. Reed turned her cool gaze on him. It was like being pinned by a laser. "It appears to have become a very public matter, Mr. Thompson. I am here on behalf of Mr. Croft. He has some urgent business to conduct." Of course," Thompson said, his tone shifting instantly to one of fawning servility. "Anything for Mr. Croft? Please come into my office." "That will not be necessary," Ms. Reed said, her voice ringing with authority. "Mr. Croft prefers transparency. We can conduct our business right here." She placed her briefcase on a nearby marble counter and opened it with a decisive snap. She removed a single, thick document and a sleek, silver pen. "Mr. Croft has been observing a number of irregularities with the management of his accounts at this branch," she stated, her eyes fixed on Thompson. "He is particularly concerned about the bank's commitment to community values and equitable treatment of all customers, regardless of their station." Thompson began to sweat. A single bead trickled down his temple. "I assure you, Ms. Reed, Sterling National prides itself on its customer service." "Does it?" she asked, her eyebrow raising a fraction of an inch. She gestured to the torn papers at Amara's feet. Is this an example of that service? He paled, stammering. That is a different situation. A credit risk. Mr. Croft disagrees, Ms. Reed cut in sharply. He believes the greatest risk to any institution is a lack of character, a lack of decency, and he has decided he can no longer risk his assets with an institution that demonstrates such a profound lack of both. She turned her attention back to Amara, her expression softening. Amara, Mr. Croft has been trying to find a way to thank you for some time, for your kindness, your diligence, and your exceptional skill at the game of chess. Amara's mind reeled. The chess game, the ghost in the penthouse. It was Silas Croft, the billionaire? It did not seem possible. He has been looking for a person of integrity and compassion to manage a new philanthropic trust he is establishing, Ms. Reed continued. A fund dedicated to providing housing security and emergency aid to families in this city. He believes he has found that person in you. She slid the document across the counter toward Amara. This is a legal instrument. It transfers the entirety of Mr. Croft's private portfolio at this bank into a new trust account, the Jones Foundation for Dignity. Amara stared at the document, her eyes struggling to focus on the dense legal text. She saw her own name, printed in bold. Amara Jones, Executive Director and sole signatory. Mr. Thompson let out a strangled gasp. He stepped closer, peering at the document over Amara's shoulder. His face, already pale, turned the color of ash. That can't be real, he whispered, his voice cracking. He pointed a trembling finger at the number at the bottom of the page. That is his entire portfolio. That is $47 million. Ms. Reed smiled, a thin, sharp smile of pure victory. $47,212,354, to be precise. And as of the moment Ms. Jones signs this paper, it will be under her exclusive control. She will, in effect, become one of this bank's most important clients. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The entire lobby was silent, every person holding their breath. The power dynamic had not just shifted, it had been utterly, seismically inverted. One moment, Amara was a beggar being thrown out into the street. The next, she was the steward of a fortune so large it was incomprehensible. Mr. Thompson's knees seemed to buckle. He leaned heavily on a counter for support, his eyes wide with horror and disbelief. He looked from the document to Amara's face, as if seeing her for the first time. He did not see a janitor. He saw the woman who held his career, his entire world, in the palm of her hand. Sign here, please, Amara, Miss Reed said gently, handing her the silver pen. Amara's hand was shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She looked at Ms. Reed, her eyes asking 1,000 questions. Ms. Reed simply nodded, her expression one of complete confidence. Amara took a deep breath, steadied her hand, and signed her name. The stroke of the pen on the thick paper was the quietest, most powerful sound she had ever heard. The moment the signature was complete, the bank's main doors swung open again. This time, it was not an elegant lawyer, but a flustered, red-faced man in an even more expensive suit than Mr. Thompson's. He was followed by 2 anxious-looking assistants. This was Mr. Davies, the regional president of Sterling National Bank. "Evelyn!" he exclaimed, rushing toward Ms. Reed, his face a mask of panicked concern. "I got your message. What is this about Mr. Croft closing his accounts? Is there a problem?" Ms. Reed did not answer. She simply gestured with one elegant hand toward the scene before him. Mr. Thompson, sweating and trembling. Amara, holding the signed $47 million transfer document, and the pieces of her loan application still scattered across the pristine marble floor. Mr. Davies's eyes followed her gesture. He saw the torn paper. He saw the janitor's uniform Amara still wore. He looked at Thompson, and a dawning, terrible understanding washed over his features. He was a man watching a multi-million-dollar catastrophe unfold in real time, and he knew exactly who had caused it. "Thompson," he roared, his voice bouncing off the high ceilings. "What did you do?" Mr. Thompson could not speak. He just shook his head, a pathetic whimpering sound escaping his lips. "He humiliated this woman, Ms. Reed supplied, her voice cold as ice. He denied her a $2,000 loan to prevent her family's eviction. He tore up her application and publicly berated her in front of your customers. And in doing so, he has insulted Mr. Silas Croft's chosen representative. He has, in short, cost you your most valuable client." Mr. Davies looked as if he was going to be sick. He turned on Thompson, his face purple with rage. "You arrogant, prejudiced fool! Do you have any idea what you have done?" He strode over to Thompson, his fury a palpable force. "You are finished. You are fired. Get your personal effects and get out of this building. Your access is revoked. Your accounts are frozen pending a full investigation into your lending practices. Now get out of my sight." Thompson stared at him, his mouth agape. "Sir, Mr. Davies, please." "Out!" Davies screamed. Two security guards who had been watching the drama unfold from a distance now moved in. They flanked Mr. Thompson, their expressions grim. The man who, moments before, had been the king of this castle was now being unceremoniously escorted toward the door like a common criminal. His reign was over. His collapse was total and absolute. As he was being led away, his eyes met Amara's. In them, she saw no remorse, no understanding, only a pathetic, desperate plea for mercy, the mercy he had so cruelly denied her. Amara found her voice. It was quiet, but in the stunned silence of the lobby, it carried with the weight of a judge's gavel. "A person's worth is not measured by their job title," she said, looking not just at Thompson, but at everyone who had watched and done nothing. "It is not measured by the clothes they wear or the balance in their bank account. It is measured by their character, by how they treat people who have nothing to offer them." She bent down, her movements graceful and deliberate, and picked up the torn pieces of her loan application. She held them in her hand. "You saw these papers," she said, her voice growing stronger, "and you saw a risk. You should have seen a person." A single person in the crowd began to clap, then another and another. Within seconds, the entire bank lobby erupted in thunderous applause. The sound was a wave of validation, washing away the shame and humiliation, replacing it with a profound, dizzying sense of vindication. The people who had been filming her degradation were now filming her triumph, their phones now capturing the spectacular downfall of Mr. Thompson and the incredible rise of Amara Jones. Mr. Davies, his face still flushed but now focused on damage control, rushed to Amara's side. "Ms. Jones," he began, his voice dripping with a desperate, synthetic sincerity. "On behalf of Sterling National Bank, I want to offer my deepest, most profound apologies. This is not who we are. The actions of that man are not representative of our values." He wrung his hands. "Please, what can we do to make this right? The loan you requested, of course, it is approved. Consider it a grant, a gift. No repayment necessary. And please do not move Mr. Croft's accounts. We will do anything. We will assign you a private banker, the best in the city. We will—" Ms. Reed held up a hand, silencing him. "That will be up to Ms. Jones. She is the director now. They are her accounts to manage as she sees fit." Davies turned his pleading eyes to Amara. The fate of his branch, perhaps his entire career, rested on her word. Amara looked at the powerful man, now reduced to begging before her. She thought of Chloe, of the eviction notice, of the cold dread she had woken up with that morning. Then she looked at the document in her hand, the one that gave her the power to change everything. "The Jones Foundation for Dignity will keep its accounts here," she said, her voice steady and clear. "For now. But we will be watching. And we will expect this bank to live up to the values you claim to have. We will expect you to treat every single person who walks through those doors with respect. The next Amara Jones who comes in asking for help, you will help her. Is that understood?" "Yes, Miss Jones," Davies said, relief flooding his face. "Crystal clear, Miss Jones. Thank you, Miss Jones." The rest of the day was a blur. A beautiful, overwhelming, unbelievable blur. Ms. Reed became her guide, her protector, her mentor. She whisked Amara away from the bank and into the waiting black car. "First things first, Miss," Reed said, as the car pulled smoothly into traffic. "Let us take care of your immediate needs." She made a series of phone calls. Within the hour, a representative from a property management company, hired by the new foundation, was at Amara's apartment building. He paid her back rent and the next 12 months in advance. The eviction was canceled. Next, they went to a dealership where a brand new, reliable family car was waiting for her, paid for in full. Amara had never owned a car that was not at least 15 years old and on the verge of breaking down. She ran her hand over the smooth, unscratched paint, her eyes wide with disbelief. Miss Reed then handed her a check. "This is your first quarterly salary payment as executive director of the foundation, plus a significant signing bonus to handle any personal debts and get you and your sister comfortably settled. The annual salary is $150,000, with full health benefits." Amara looked at the check. It was for $50,000. More money than she had seen in her entire life. More than she had ever dreamed of holding in her hand. The numbers swam before her eyes. I can't accept this," she stammered. "It is too much." "Nonsense," Ms. Reed said firmly but kindly. "Mr. Croft believes that the person running a foundation dedicated to financial dignity should, herself, have financial dignity. You have earned this, Amara. Not just today, but every day you have gotten up before dawn and worked until you ached, all while maintaining your grace and kindness." While they were out, another team, dispatched by Ms. Reed, had descended upon Amara's small apartment. When Amara and Ms. Reed returned that evening, Amara gasped. The apartment was transformed. The old, sagging couch was gone, replaced by a new, comfortable one. A new dining table and chairs stood where the wobbly card table had been. The kitchen was fully stocked with fresh, healthy food, fruits, vegetables, meat, things Amara always had to ration. In Chloe's room, there was a new bed with a bright, colorful comforter, a new desk for her homework, and a shelf filled with new books. Chloe was sitting on her new bed, her eyes like saucers, when Amara walked in. "Mara, what happened? Some nice people came and brought all this stuff. They said it was for us." Amara knelt and pulled her sister into a fierce hug, and finally, the tears she had been holding back all day came. But these were not tears of shame or fear. They were tears of overwhelming relief, of gratitude, of a joy so profound it felt like it could crack her heart open. "Everything is going to be okay now, Chloe," she whispered into her sister's hair. "I promise. Everything is going to be okay." That night, for the first time in years, Amara Jones slept a deep, dreamless sleep. The weight was gone. The next day, she met her benefactor. Mrs. Reed drove her to the Citadel Tower, but not to the service entrance. They went through the main lobby and took the express elevator straight to the penthouse. The man waiting for them by the telescope was not what she expected. He was not a formidable titan of industry. He was a quiet, slightly stooped man in a simple sweater and comfortable-looking pants. He had kind, intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything. It was the man she sometimes saw late at night from a distance. The one she had assumed was a fellow night shift worker, maybe a security guard or a programmer working late. "Hello, Amara," he said, his voice soft. "It is a pleasure to formally meet my chess partner." "Mr. Croft," she said, her voice filled with awe. I do not know what to say. Thank you is not a big enough word." "There is no need for thanks," he said with a small smile. "I should be thanking you. I have spent my life building things, systems, code. I have made a great deal of money. But I have realized recently that my greatest creation will be meaningless if it is not used to create a better, kinder world. I needed someone to help me do that. Someone with a strategic mind," he gestured to the chessboard, "and a compassionate heart." He walked her through his vision for the foundation. It was not just about charity, he explained. It was about investment, investing in people, providing small loans for entrepreneurs, grants for education, emergency funds to prevent one medical bill or one broken-down car from sending a family into a spiral of poverty. "You understand what it is like," he told her. "You have lived it. You will know how to help in ways I never could. All I ask is that you lead with the same integrity and kindness you have shown your entire life." Meanwhile, Mr. Thompson's ruin was swift and complete. The bank's internal investigation, spurred by the threat of losing the Croft accounts, uncovered a pattern of discriminatory lending practices going back years. He had systematically denied loans to qualified applicants from minority communities. He was not just fired, he was facing federal charges. The story hit the news, and his name and face were plastered everywhere, a symbol of corporate prejudice. His wife filed for divorce. His assets were frozen. He lost everything. He had tried to destroy Amara's life over $2,000, and in the end, had destroyed his own. It was a brutal but just irony. 1 year later, Amara Jones walked through the bustling office of the Jones Foundation for Dignity. She no longer wore a janitor's uniform. Today, she was in a smart, professional dress, but her smile was the same. Her warmth was the same. Her heart was the same. The foundation occupied an entire floor of a downtown office building, not far from the Citadel Tower. In 1 year, she had transformed her vision into a powerful force for good in the city. The foundation had helped over 500 families avoid eviction. It had provided startup capital for dozens of small businesses owned by women and minorities. It had created a scholarship fund for first-generation college students. Her sister Chloe was thriving. She was at the top of her class at a new, better school. She was happy and secure, the shadows of worry gone from her young eyes. Amara sat down at her large, clean desk, a desk that was a symbol not of power, but of responsibility. Her first appointment of the day was with a young woman who reminded her so much of her former self, a single mother working 2 jobs, trying to get a small loan to pay for the certification she needed to get a promotion. Her application had been denied by 3 banks. The woman sat nervously across from Amara, clutching a folder just as Amara had. "I know my credit is not perfect," the woman said, her voice trembling. "But I am a hard worker. I just need someone to give me a chance." Amara looked at her, not at her paperwork. She saw the exhaustion in her eyes, but also the fierce determination. She saw the hope, flickering but not extinguished. She smiled, a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "At the Jones Foundation," Amara said, her voice full of the kindness and respect she had once been denied, "we do not invest in credit scores. We invest in character." She pushed a form across the desk. It was not a loan application. It was a grant approval. "We are not giving you a loan," Amara told the shocked woman. "We are giving you a grant to cover the full cost of your certification. And we are going to provide you with a mentor to help you succeed. We are giving you a chance." The woman stared at the paper, then at Amara, her eyes filling with tears. They were the same tears Amara had cried 1 year ago in a cold bank lobby. Tears of relief, of hope reborn. As the woman left, her shoulders lighter and her future brighter, Amara looked out her office window at the sprawling city. She knew that true wealth was not measured in dollars, but in the lives you could uplift. Her mother's words came back to her, as clear as if she were standing in the room. "You be the light, Amara. No matter how dark it gets, you shine." She was shining, and her light was helping others find their own. The cycle of kindness, she had learned, was infinitely more powerful than the cycle of poverty, and it was a cycle she would spend the rest of her life creating, one person, one chance, one act of dignity at a time.